Today, I want to share something with you that might very well be of interest to you. It came to my attention, I wouldn't say about a month ago, and it ties into all these other things. So it is called the concept of soul replacement. They now want your spark or your soul, call it whatever. And what I want to say is, in addition to all of these other deceptions, agendas, and cul-de-sacs that are already going on, and we now also have this newish concept from a new age person, which I wanted to share with you because it's always good to be aware of these things. So in a previous video, we already dissected Penra's ideas and how he wants you to go back to an AI entity, which he calls Orion's Queen. And this is going to be after death, obviously, not when you're alive. That's all these things usually are after death, when you can't actually physically prove it. And Wes Penra is a strong proponent of at this point, I'm just going to call them diabolic soul trap community. I will share more on my findings of these people as we go along. It can obviously not be done in one video altogether. And I myself also have to recuperate my energy. Those who are following me on Instagram know why at this point. But I will share more on this in the future. Today, I wanted to share this snippet with you as it does seem relevant because these are all concepts we will encounter when we die or also when we're still alive. In this particular case, it is similar to the walk-in theory. And I'm just going to quote, I wrote down exactly what this person said. So this person, she was having a live stream. And this person was just verbatim saying all these things, which I wrote down. I'm going to add my comments to it. So we're going to start off quoting her. She's saying, we will have these soul replacement where it wasn't a walk-in. It's when the person who occupies a body, another soul is coming in and they just trade places. Because a lot of souls coming in don't want to go through childhood. They don't want to wait 20 years to be a fully functional adult. And I'm just going to interrupt and being like, okay, so what she's saying is she's having a small differentiation between a walk-in and a soul replacement, which she'll explain later on. But to me, when she first said this, what instantaneously came to my mind was, okay, she's talking about walk-ins very clearly. It doesn't matter if they're voluntary as she tries to push them or not, it's still a walk-in. It doesn't belong in your body. And this entire idea of your body, meaning your vessel, some people call it the meat suit, which is so derogative, by the way. This entire idea of your body not really mattering and a random other soul or a random other something entity being able to enter and take it over, it gives me such an icky feeling. I'm sure it's the same for you at this point, but it gives me such a strong what the heck feeling, because when you really know about DNA, and your DNA is so precious, I even wrote it right here down below. It is so precious. When you know that you have your DNA, everything's in your DNA, everything's encoded in your DNA, your entire soul memory, your entire lineages, your entire ancestry, your entire past lives. You carry your DNA over with you from lifetime to lifetime. That's why you look similar from lifetime to lifetime. For me personally, the way that manifests is I always had these high cheekbones. I've always had a similar lip structure. I've always had like the same chin that you usually see right now. And even if I was a guy, which in most lifetimes I happen to be a woman, but even when I was a guy, it would just look, more manly, obviously, but the high cheekbones were always there. Even the nose, I am convinced I had a lot of past lifetimes, and I know of a few for a fact because I've really dug through that a few years ago, that I had a past lifetime as a Roman, because I have this very strong Roman nose, and I've always been fascinated with the entire ancient Greece and ancient Roman history. But those are just a few pointers, there are so many things. So there's all these things that go into your DNA, which I also teach in my DNA course. By the way, I'll put a link in the description box because no one knows this thing. I'm the only one who actually teaches these concepts because I dug through them and I'm really, really interested in them. And so when someone already comes with, oh, they occupy your body, meaning they compare it to a car or a vessel, which she continues on doing, it will never resonate with me, because there's something so precious about your body that all these entities want to constantly take it over and over again. And this is what we see in the New Age, but also in these other deception programs. You see it in the religious program too, when you're supposed to be calling in random angels or archangels, and then all of a sudden you have a weird serpent or snake energy in your body and you have to remove those. I remove a whole bunch of those when I do removal sessions. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but I think you understand my point. And so she goes on saying, and then there are souls that are just done. So she's meaning people that are just done. And I'm not even 100% convinced a lot of these people that just decide to leave or die all of a sudden, that they really do have a soul. You know, you talk about the concept of background characters, NPCs, call them whatever. At the end of the day, they're all the same. So she says they just want to be finished. They don't want to hang out anymore. They just want to leave and be done here, but they don't necessarily want to go through the whole death experience and all of that. Meaning what she's saying is the soul just wants to poof, leave, the body's still there, and then another soul enters and takes it over. So there's a perfectly good body that has a number of miles on it, and somebody just walks in and they do a soul replacement. And when she said that, I was reminded of soul. So you have SOUL, but you also have SOLE, you know, like your foot sole, you know, walking on soles, like the sole of your shoes, for example. Which a lot of people know that they used to. I don't know if they still do that, but for sure they did this in the 80s and 90s and so on. They used to take a print of your baby foot once you were born, right? Like they were imprinting that soul imprint onto a piece of paper and putting it in their database. At least I'm pretty sure in all Western countries. I'm not sure if it's not a Western country, if they've done it. Like if you're born somewhere in Latin America, maybe not. But in Western countries, that does seem to have been the case. So just something I wanted to intersect, has nothing to do with this, but soul and then the other souls, you know, the souls that we have, once again, it has to do with your body, and your body, like bone structures, bloods, hair, all of that has DNA in it, you know. When I first introduced, she goes on saying, when I first introduced this back in 2010-ish or so, people freaked out. But in the last few years, there was less freak out about it. So we can't actually verify that she said this back then because there's not really video proof of it. You know, the video platforms have changed, but if we give her credibility, sure, she's been preaching about this for 15 years. There will be a soul displacement or replacement when another soul comes in and takes over, and you get to leave. And all I was thinking was, wow, what a great idea. How easy for an entity just to take over and you can leave. Amazing. There will be a very little obvious shift in you because it will still be you. There will be just some subtle differences. So essentially she's promoting a takeover, is what I was thinking. And we've already seen that. If you notice, there are, you know, sometimes people are in a coma. So she's using the coma example. People are in a coma, they wake up, they can play the piano like a master, or they're speaking in a different language. That is a soul displacement. Well, let's just assume this thing really exists. Like what she's promoting is a takeover. Yes, that could be true. But another reason could be simply because they remember some of the past lives they had. And that's why they speak the language they used to speak in a previous life, or they used to be a piano player in a previous. That's how I like to see those things. And you see that a lot with kids who are all of a sudden just so talented with 0 years of experience. That is a strong past life memory. So it could be similar to a coma, because when you're in a coma, there are certain brain cells, you know, like they say brain cells die off or others being activated. So the entire neural network is being rewired. And for me, that is a more likely explanation. But yeah, of course, it could be also because a different entity took them over. Absolutely. And then someone asked in the live stream, where do they go to? And she legit replied, this is the best part. This is always how you know they've not dug deep enough. You know, they're digging a little bit on the surface, but they're not digging to where the actual treasure or the actual gold or the actual wisdom is. They just go home. Oh, okay. They just go home. Where's home? You know, and she goes on saying the person who leaves goes home. They go back to soul heaven, wherever that is. The new soul just comes in and they just take over. So I didn't even know if there was a soul heaven. It's good to know that people are now promoting the concept of a soul heaven, because maybe, you know, let's just say you do pass away or you have this near-death experience and you see this tunnel of light, which we all talked about. You know, it's been extensively talked about. I'm going to link my video. And then all of a sudden a voice is saying, go to soul heaven. So you know already, okay, this could be another thing they're trying to drag you into. Just be aware of that. Where are we now? Okay, and oh yeah, and this is what she says. The good thing about it is that there's very little change in the actual person. So you stay the same with slight differences. It's not really obvious to people around you that something has happened, but the new soul comes in and then uses all the accumulated knowledge and whatever you've done, and they go and complete whatever mission they have to complete. So assuming we have a mission, obviously, in this case, right? But what else is happening is there are a lot of people who are ready to go. And sometimes these are mass events where numbers of people die and it's just time for them to go. Yeah, those are usually, I don't want to call them robots or background characters, but usually those people, you know, if you look at the Titanic, not a whole lot of player characters necessarily died in those, or when you look at other occurrences. And plus, when they die, they just come back because they're reincarnated, right? So they don't really go to a soul heaven. They literally just come back. Sometime early, so she was saying this last year, sometime early this year where events happen like that, people en masse will decide they are ready to go and they will just go, done with the hassle. And then she says this here, which you already know, this is typical New Age mentality. And we all agreed to be here. Okay, who agreed to be here? Do your thing if you think you agreed to be here, like lift your hands. I mean, obviously we can't see it, but you know, if you think you agreed to be here, which at this point I don't think anyone watching this video will, we all agreed to be here, but we did not all agree to be here for the duration. Okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense though, because if you agree to be here, you're under the psyop that you have something to complete, so you need to complete it all the way through and not just be randomly taken over by something else. She goes on saying, it's perfectly fine for you to decide you want to go, but if it was really time for you to go, you would already be gone. So this is like typical. It almost reminds you a little bit of Dolores Cannon, like the way she was speaking and really misleading people, like shove them here and then there, and then there's another maze you can go through. That's what it reminds you of, right? How can it be when your soul is gone and the new soul is in the body? Is what another person was asking. Like, it's obviously this entire concept, you know, it's not very easy to digest because it has way too many holes in it, and you can just poke some holes in it and the entire balloon deflates. And then she says, it's you in terms of the 3D person. So think of a car. A car has the engine, the transmission, the seats, everything. Someone decides they don't want the car, meaning your body. They sell it and someone else comes in and drives it. Okay, great. So this is legit a takeover, a soul takeover. It's not even a soul replacement or a voluntary whatever. This is a takeover. The car has not changed. The driver has changed. Your imprinted body has all your thoughts and everything in there. And the one thing they take, I think she was saying at this example, like when someone dies and they take their last breath, the spark goes out, something like that, which sure, that could very well be true. There's scientific proof of how you're maybe even so many grams lighter after your death. So the physical body, mental body, energy body is still there and still exists, but the spark is not there and gets replaced. The spark of light that your soul gets replaced is by another spark of light, basically. She's calling these souls sparks of light. And yes, you will feel a difference in somebody. They will feel different to you if you're really empathic and really tapped in. But your soul has gone home, wherever home is. And this other person says, good, you have a body to sell, so I can slip in and you can slip out, and thank you very much. It's like a car getting a new driver. Yeah, it's a bit scary, I'm not gonna lie, that these things are being promoted and people are actually listening to them and taking them, you know, serious. And I don't want to say taking them serious, but it's kind of like, this is dangerous because let's just assume this is already happening, and I'm sure this is somehow already happening where things are being taken over and all of a sudden this other person is an entity. They're not the person they were before. This is how things are being justified in the new age now, right? Oh, it's just a soul displacement. It's completely normal, you know. And you just have to wonder where the soul really goes in their, you know, according to this, are they kept somewhere? Are they like caged in somewhere? You never know. So she's saying this is going to happen a lot if you decide to volunteer, raise your hand and we will see what happens. She actually said raise your hand and volunteer for this. But this is an option too, and it's an option that's different from walk-ins. I guess in her opinion, walk-ins are not voluntary and this is voluntary. That's the only difference between a walk-in that I can detect. This is more of a soul exchange and different things because there's no perceptible difference, just a slight one. Like they change the light bulb in your new life and take over. It is not a forcible takeover, but voluntarily and literally complementary. You want to go and they want to come in. Okay. So a walk-in is when someone takes over, not voluntarily, they just push you out, is what she defined it as. Scary. So we're done with the quotation. Do you want this? I mean, raise your hand if you want this, but for sure I do not. And I know a lot of people who don't either. It makes you wonder how many people this already happened to, you know, their energy changing pretty much overnight and being pretty, yeah, rejective, maybe like from an energetic level. And you know, this is like for the longest time, you're just wondering about, this is a person also promotes like the 5D ascension agenda and everything. You're just wondering, they're these type of people for the longest of time, they're parroting these new age concepts like, oh, 5D ascension. And you think it's so harmless and this and that. And then wham, 10, 15 years later, they come up with this here where they are actively trying to recruit people who want to give up their soul on a voluntary level because, oh, things are so hard and tough right now. Why don't you just voluntarily give up your soul and give it to a random other soul, which in my opinion is obviously an entity that wants to take it over. It turns out it's just more dangerous. You know, the more you dive into these concepts, the more dangerous they actually get. And so it's basically like a soul compromise or a soul takeover that's being promoted. So just wanted to share this with you and make a separate video on it because I think it's just so important to be aware of these things right now. And, you know, as you know, like this is really a year where you're going to see a lot of these astral wars and really combats for your soul. Let's put it that way, where it's going to play out on an energetic level. So you need to be aware of these things. And I hope this helps you. Share your thoughts below. If you've heard of this before, if you think this is something you want to do or what your opinions really are. It's a little bit different from the entire soul trap psyop or soul trap deception that's coming up too. But in a way, you know, it's not even like the typical new age deceptions that you usually encounter, like the fluffy rainbows and butterflies and rainbow bridges and whatever. But in a way, it's almost as dangerous as all of this together, at least in my opinion, because it's making it seem like people voluntarily want to go when nothing could be further from the truth. All right, guys, have a good one and talk to you soon.